Hello, and welcome back to the Spelman Economics Podcast.
My name is Jenna Wilson, and I am serving as a co-podcast producer for the podcast.
My name is Alajah Boddie, also serving as a co-podcast producer for the podcast.
Last episode, we discussed what was going on in the socio-political climate in both the U.S. and abroad.
And in today's episode, we're going to be building off the topic of employment by exploring what to do with an economics major in the current career paths available.
Yeah, and so I think when we traditionally think of what economics majors do, what comes to people's mind initially is usually the economist, someone who spends their whole career sort of researching and analyzing what's going on in typically the US economic world. And that definitely is something that a lot of economics majors consider for sure, because it's, definitely economics major, economist, very A to B. However, only about 10% of those who actually graduate with an undergrad degree in economics actually end up becoming an economist or sort of going on that track of becoming an economist. There are tons of other traditional paths that are still super popular aside from being an economist. For example, Wall Street is something that I think comes to a lot of people's minds when they think about traditional career paths. So there are a lot of other things that people tend to consider within that sort of traditional realm aside from just being an economist.
No, yeah, I agree. When I switched to an econ major, it was never with the anticipation of becoming somebody working at the Fed, doing the actual data behind what economies are looking like throughout the world.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
was more with just getting, I feel like, the analytical side and developing my skills within the field to maybe pivot into a lot of other fields.
Yeah.
So when I thought of economics and econ, I thought of Wall Street, and I think a lot of people outside of the AUC or low-key outside of the Spelman bubble think of the same thing. Okay, you're an econ major because you want to work on Wall Street.
Right.
But then a lot of times, what even is Wall Street? You're just saying
I know,
Wall
just
Street to mean finance.
Right, yeah.
But Wall Street is actually central to the U.S. financial system that we have today, especially since the early 1900s, when major banks and investment firms have a lot of capital and began shaping the capital markets and played a huge role during the 1929 stock market and the Great Depression.
Yeah.
So, and it continues to this day to influence how companies raise capital. And in my opinion, a lot of econ majors coming out of Spelman have traditionally gone into roles through the Wall Street idea, like sales, wealth management, asset management, and the big investment banking.
Yes, so true.
And even outside of working on Wall Street, the New York hub, a lot of them do work in corporate finance here in Atlanta or in Chicago, or managing smaller firms to help make financial decisions.
Yes.
We'll free that word.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I was thinking about investment banking a lot because I know that's such a huge thing. Obviously, if you were talking about Wall Street, investment banking is a really big part of it. So I was just wondering if you could sort of elaborate on what investment banking really is, because I know that's just sort of a buzzword that people can toss around a lot.
No, I agree. Investment banking, whenever I get asked by a recruiter, so why are you interested in IB?
Right.
Investment banking is mainly about helping a firm or a company raise capital and make these huge financial decisions that you're going to see when you open the newspaper or the Wall Street Journal or the New York Times. You see this with mergers and acquisitions. You have two businesses, they're joining or they're separating. And it's less about the idea of personal banking, the bank when you go into Capital One and pull out money, and more about large-scale capital and corporate strategy.
Yeah, for sure. And also when I think about investment banking, my mind goes to hedge funds, and I'm I've always heard that in movies.
I was about to say, what's
Wolf
that
on Wall
movie they
Street
mentioned
stuff.
it, The Big Short or
Yes,
something?
The Big Short. Yeah, that was about the 2008 housing crisis.
Yeah.
I'm just not completely clear on what hedge funds are. So I was wondering if you've a way of sort of interpreting that.
I always say hedge funds is trying to think of a good metaphor. You see this really, really run down crab shack. And you're wow, I know that crabs are actually really popular, XYZ.
Right.
I have a bunch of funds that I can put into this crab shack. And normally hedge funds would deal with non-traditional classes. So stuff that like was up and coming. A lot of the times when we were younger, the idea of like these huge California tech hedge funds,
Yeah.
that's what really drove the market into looking at non-traditional investments, because everyone was like, what's tech? What's
Yeah,
.com? What's
exactly.
Apple?
Yeah.
So these came from the idea of hedge funds, looking at a small idea that's not really invested in and making huge returns. So then you can either sell at a really high point
Yeah.
or hold and make amazing returns. Like if you invested in Apple 35 years ago,
Yeah.
you're big now. So just trying to have institutional investors come into smaller spaces and use their financial tools that they may have gotten from working at JP Morgan or working at Goldman Sachs, and just making sure they make a profit. So just flipping a house.
Okay, I see. That's like a much clearer
Yeah, like-
definition than what I've usually gotten. Okay, cool.
And then I know a lot of, especially here in Spelman, I think hedge funds aren't really actually promoted that much. I think we're
Yeah.
all about IB here. I don't know why. Maybe it's like the culture, like IB is really looked at as being amazing
Yeah.
and you're going to make money and you're going to get rich and we love a get rich quick scheme.
Yeah, for sure.
Whereas hedge funds now going into the financial sphere has like went down in popularity, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. And there are also like a ton of other sectors of banking. Like obviously investment banking is like a big one that people tend to think about. But I would say that like banking in general is definitely something that has been really like important, particularly in the U.S. You mentioned the Great Depression. That's something that the banking system sort of in some ways started and also in some ways sort of remediated through like the FDIC and ensuring that like deposits are insured and everything, which is super important. Obviously, like we're not having bank runs like we used to and everything. I think it's like up to $250,000 are like insured by your bank for deposits. So it's definitely something that we see a lot. And then also like the 2008 housing crisis, as we mentioned, that was
really
huge.
big. Lehman Brothers,
heavily involved in terms of like those subprime mortgage lending practices that weren't super great. So it's super important that we have like competent, not super sleazy people working in banking. So like it's definitely a really big and also really important sector that we have for sure.
No, I agree. The Lehman Brothers, like every time I think about that, I'm like, wow, how did y'all let that happen?
I know.
Like, wow, like people lost
kinda
everything.
crazy. Yeah.
And then even Obama coming in and making so that banks can't use the money that people put in to make risky investments.
Yeah.
I think having these people in positions of power in politics making safer choices for us, because a lot of us are not educated about that, has made banking a more, I would say, transparent job. A lot of times, I think the narrative around banking has shifted. But talking about banking, what are some other specializations within it?
Right. So I think that the main thing that people tend to think about, like just like an everyday person, is consumer banking. They might not use that phrase, but like you think of Bank of America, like that's my bank, for example. You know, like I'm doing certain transactions, deposits, withdrawals. Maybe I'm setting up like a certificate of deposit or something, like smaller sort of investments, you know, that the bank is helping me handle. And that's very like person to person, everyday kind of consumer thing. And then of course, like within that, there's like fintech, there's sort of digital banking systems, like I never really go over to Bank of America unless I'm doing something very specific, you know, like trying to set up something like very niche. It's usually like, oh, I'll just go on the Bank of America app, you know, tap, 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 and I'll like figure something out, you know? And fintech in particular is like a really big growing sort of sphere. So if you're someone who's like interested in both technology and finance, it's like a like huge booming sort of sector for you to get into and like can be really lucrative, I think. So that's definitely something to consider. There's also treasury management, which is sort of like more short-term kind of corporate transaction handling and everything, especially like looking at liquidity, looking at sort of the daily cash flow of a corporation is definitely something that you see in treasury management. Yeah. And then sort of like the broader scope of that is corporate banking. That's where you're looking at more long-term investments. You're looking at how the company is doing overall and sort of finding ways to manage those funds. And then, of course, sort of like hand in hand with the corporate banking or the consumer banking, there's also mortgage lending, which is sort of like, you know, you want to get a house, you got to get some money for it if that's something that you need, which most people do. You know, you have to get a loan. And so you would go to mortgage lenders to sort of help you out with that. And there's like a whole group of people who are behind that operation. And so everything that we've been discussing so far, like we've been talking about economists, we've been talking about, you know, Wall Street investment banking and all these other kinds of banking. And so we see that there are a lot of avenues that economics majors can take, you know, within that sort of traditional path. I believe that Econ out of 74 majors has the highest mid-career earning. So it's like definitely something that has always been seen as like a very sort of stable, traditional kind of path to take and has its own kind of prestige that comes along with it for sure.
No, I agree. I remember, where was I? I was in New York for a women in private equity conference.
Oh, cool.
And I was talking to one of the recruiters. She worked out of, I believe, Aries or Apollo, one of the two.
Yeah.
One of the A's.
Yeah.
And we were talking, and she was actually a French major econ minor.
Oh.
And we were talking about how I was an econ major. And she was like, I actually, because she was really big in her field, she was like a managing director or a senior vice president. And she was like, I did a internal report on majors and the outlook of majors. And she said that in interning classes, so whoever you're interning with, you are a class, so you move together through the ecosystem that is banking. She said, looking at the highest performers in every intern class, it's normally a liberal arts degree, and it's a non-traditional degree. So thinking not the business administration, not the finance, not that. She says econ majors, language majors, where you're like a major in Spanish, a major in Chinese, or something a little bit niche.
Off kilter.
She said, literally. She was like, they perform higher because she was like, liberal arts education and the way you have to look at problems is very different compared to like a business administration major, where yes, all you do is look at business, but
what else?
Econ makes business. So if you don't know anything that's actually the macro or micro look at it, do you really know anything?
It's true.
So that was very interesting, and I can see how that out of the 74 majors, econ is really up there.
Yeah, definitely.
Even in banking, it's up there.
It's true.
But today, traditional paths in economics is still very strong. Many econ majors will still go into corporate roles such as consulting, like I mentioned, private equity, public equity.
Yeah.
And I know here, especially in Spelman, they didn't even think about this, private equity has gained massive popularity because this is almost the same idea of like going into a house and doing fixer-upper, like HGTV vibes. Like, it has really boomed here at Spelman. And I don't,
Yeah, no, for sure. Are there like other roles that you've seen that are really like popular, like really interest a lot of people who go here at Spelman that are like within the economics major?
I would say just serving on two e-boards, like Scholars of Finance and Econ Club, like I get a very good look at like both sides of the argument. I would say so many freshmen come to me and they're like, I want to go to asset and wealth management. I want to do this. I want to do that.
Very glamorous.
Yes. And I think it's because asset and wealth management or like investment banking, they have procedures that have stood the time, like literally forever.
For sure.
So you're going into a very well-established field. You have a lot of safety nets. You're not going to be thrown into the waters and made to swim when you don't know how to swim. So I think it really appeals to people coming right out of Spelman College, where you have that safety net. So you're going into a field where it's very similar. I know private equity has become like very high exposure here because of the alt finance fellowship, where HBCU
that
students.
Makes a lot of sense. Because like every other person is like,
it's so bad.
Finance,
like we're oversaturated.
They don't even say alt finance, just alt.
Alt, we all say alt. It's just we're so lazy. Alt, you know, I have an alt thing today. But alt finance, as much as I hate to gas them up, they do a really good job about making sure you try every single thing on your plate to see what you actually don't like. Like, you can't just say, I don't like that. They're like, no, you're going to try it. You're going to do the homework for it. You're going to research it. You're going to give a topic on it. And then you can say, I do or do not like it. So that was the first introduction to finance for a lot of the girls here. And it's such a particular focus on alternative investments, which is like hedge funds, like we mentioned earlier, private equity, like we mentioned earlier, real estate. So because you're placed in a situation where that's your focus, you are given the tools to succeed. So a lot of us are thinking, wow, private equity, it's looking good, it's looking great. But also private equity is huge right now outside of Spelman. Like the industry's booming. A lot of people are looking at it. So there's more jobs opening up for it is what I would say, why people are gravitating towards that.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
And so now we're going to be talking about what can you do outside of what has historically been done here at Spelman. I know we always talk about how Spelman women are change makers and trailblazers. But what does that actually mean? So that means even though we talked about finance a lot, you don't have to go into finance and you don't have to go into an econ role. You can work for the government. I know there's roles, and they love an econ major actually because it shows that you can do analytical side plus have a very well view of maybe writing a paper or something like that. It mixes like English and I would say like math very well. Like you cross those two boundaries very nicely.
Interdisciplinary.
So you can work as a budget analyst, so working in many different government offices, and you can evaluate how public funds are allocated. I know you see a lot of audits, like this is where your money's going to when you pay taxes. You can be the person doing that audit.
Yeah.
Or looking at how the U.S. government is spending your money and if it's actually spending it efficiently. Econ is always about efficiency. I don't know, like,
very
why we
efficient.
always,
Yeah, I
like,
know. Gotta do this. I mean, it makes sense. It's about
PPI
money.
and all that, like, if it's efficient or not. So
Right.
you've already done it here at Spelman, so you can do it for the U.S. government. Or you can be an economic development specialist. I actually just interned, like, did an interview for that role.
Oh, wow.
Working at Oracle, which is actually a tech company.
Yeah.
But they have a lot of economics roles because they actually just partnered with the city of Atlanta to do zoning and planning.
Oh, that's crazy.
But they don't want to, like, do zoning and planning if you don't, like, take an
Right.
account of the economic things happening.
Right.
So I was going to intern under the economics team that was going to work with the tech team to look at how the economic, like, things are going to change if you rezone the city of Atlanta. So something like that, it's really about being niche and being able to market econ. Like, I think if you market it well, you can work in so many different asset classes or cities or industries to create a business or to have a job or to do a lot of other things. And even going outside of that government idea, but similar, you can go into law.
Yeah,
I think
for
there's
sure.
so many econ majors here that are like, oh, I'm going to law school.
Yeah.
Like,
on the pre-law track.
yeah. But also, so funny you mentioned that. I think economics is one of the only majors here at Spelman that, like, when you go to the course sheet, it's like pre-law track, pre-med track, pre-engineering track. We have so many different tracks.
That's true.
Because so many, you can do anything with econ. Like, that's
It's
the
true,
really
highly
moral,
transferable.
like,
Yeah.
I know somebody she's on the e-board.
Yeah.
Literally Tatum. She's she's econ on the engineering track. And I'm just like,
it's like,
I didn't know we had that.
Yeah,
I
no,
literally
it's
didn't know we
crazy.
had that. But econ is the only technically non-STEM major that's allowed to do that
right.
because it
It's got-
crosses so many boundaries.
It's got a lot
like,
of STEM, like, kind
exactly.
of
The
elements to
calculus really comes in.
it. Right.
So let's say you're looking through that course sheet and you say, oh, pre-law track. I want to go to law school.
Right.
What are you going to do? You can do antitrust law, looking at how economists help determine whether a merger can reduce competition, which can have. You have to have competition in a market society. I know a merger and acquisition just failed because economists on the team said, no, Adobe, you actually can't buy every PowerPoint software in the world.
Right.
So that failed. But if economists never would have looked at that, they would have been like,
Exactly.
it's fine. You could have a monopoly.
Right.
So you could do that. You can be the person saying, no.
Right.
Or get your law degree and be a consultant. So many consultants get your
lot,
JD and then they just sit there and rack in the dough because I have a JD and you only have a bachelor's.
Right.
So
Right.
who
I'm
are
still like, what are consultants?
well, let's wake that one up. 'Cause really, what do consultants even do?
Yeah.
I don't really know. My dad's a consultant. I still don't know. Like, I'd be asking. He's just like,
Right.
just a lot of
I
Zoom
feel like
calls.
they always evade. I'm
right?
like, what's going on?
What are you consulting on? Let me know
Right.
something.
Yeah.
But to really go random, I feel like people don't really think about this one when they think econ. Journalism.
So true. Yeah.
Like, you can write a great paper. You can write papers. Like, the Wall Street Journal has to be written by somebody.
Yeah, definitely.
The New York Times has to be written by somebody when you go into the economic part. Like, you can be that person writing the economic column. Talk about inflation and the inflation data currently happening in the U.S. Talk about the unemployment reports that were just released by the Fed. Or even talk about the earnings that the public has and how it's affecting the economy.
Right.
This requires not just the writing skills that you develop here at Spelman College, but also the technical ability to break down the models and the statistics that maybe an English major
like,
will balk at.
Yeah, I know.
So, and I was about to say, what kind of other fields or less represented fields than the top three that I just mentioned do you think have an overlap with econ?
Right. So I think, like, managerial roles, we were talking about, like, business majors and how, like, they might not necessarily have the same skill set as economics majors, but I feel like when it comes to being able to go from one to the other, like, I feel like econ majors have a lot of advantage in terms of being able to transfer to, like, more business or managerial kind of roles, because not only do you have that sort of financial background, but I feel like you also have to hone a lot of leadership skills, a lot of managerial skills, time management skills as an econ major that work really well for management. And, like, one sector that I think of in particular is hotel management. That's something that, like, I've been pretty interested in. I think it's pretty fascinating to be able to see, like, the inner workings behind a business and that specific kind of business. Like, I feel like it's very niche. So I think, like, that's also something that a lot of econ majors can go into that they might not traditionally think of. But yeah, definitely, like, managerial roles. I also think of nonprofits. That's a huge thing. Obviously, nonprofits really do need economic specialists. I'm thinking of like the Wildlife Fund. I'm thinking of the American Red Cross. I'm thinking of the International Rescue Committee. There are a lot of those kinds of nonprofits that really need people to manage the limited funds that they have. Obviously, nonprofits can struggle a lot in order to sort of accumulate and maintain the money that they get from investors or people who are donating. So it's really important that you have people who are knowledgeable and are able to manage that in, like, again, the most efficient way possible. And then, of course, like, more related to, like, international relations, there's, of course, the UN, like, having economic specialists there is super important.
I was actually not thinking that.
Yeah, no, it's definitely something that can come up a lot. So definitely, like, those kinds of roles can come in handy. They need them for a ton of different things. There's the World Bank as well, you know, some questionable lending practices there. You know, they got some issues going on, but, like, that's also... Right. There are also a lot of roles there that, you know, are related to both international relations and also the economic side of things. And then I remember, I think it was last school year, the Spelman Econ Club, I think also in partnership with the Morehouse Business Association, had U Chicago come over and give a talk. And they were specifically talking about research there at U Chicago, and I think they had like a couple of researchers talk about their experience there at the university. And I remember one of them in particular was talking about economics research they were doing that was aligned with sort of looking at racial inequity and sort of systemic barriers and sort of overlapping sort of quantitative economics research with sort of the more qualitative, what we see as like sort of soft sciences. But I think that's really important to look at those intersections, obviously, and there's not a whole lot of representation out there of, like,
I think in criminology we talked about it, because, like, criminology has a lot of research.
Yeah.
And it was, like, in the criminology field, there's, like, minusing HBCUs, I think there were, like, 5 or 7 that were, like, really high fields. And working as a researcher this summer, literally doing my research was about... racial inequalities when you're trying to get credit and capital for small businesses. I can determinately say that, like, we need more people, because who else is going to research us but us?
I was going to say.
Because no one's going to be looking at about how if black women can get a loan or not, rather than just black women doing the hard work themselves.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I do agree.
No, that's definitely really important. Like, there are just a lot of gaps that you see within that. And it's really important that we have people who are filling those gaps. And if you're someone who's like, oh, like, I'm interested in econ, but, like, I'm also interested in, like, social impact and those kinds of things, like, this is a great area to sort of look at that intersection, you know, of, like, sort of blending both of those elements. So I think that's really important.
And then, are there any sectors that seem super duper out of the field, not even, should we be even be looking at it, but are not uncommon for econ majors here?
Yeah, so I think, like, in general, not just even econ majors, but, like, if you have any major that really develops robust, like, critical thinking and analytical skills, like, if you're an undergrad, like, a lot of people will go to their master's and maybe do things that seem like they required a lot of prior knowledge, like you couldn't go into it unless you started out with it in your undergrad, but they're still able to because they have those learning abilities, you know, like, it's something that's really important that you really need to hone while you're an undergrad, so you can sort of go on to do whatever you want. Like, if you're an economics major now and you're like, I want to pivot, you have that opportunity, right? So there are people who go into medicine, go into computer science, especially data analytics is something that's a really big thing.
I think they used to have a minor for that here.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we still do.
I think we might still have it. I'm not completely sure. But I was considering that as well because it's really, like, handy for econ majors, definitely. And there's a lot of overlap there, like with econometrics. It's something that's really helpful. Looking at the analytics of economics is a really huge thing. And then, like, of course, medicine and computer science, like, those skills that you hone in undergrad can be really helpful later on if you're going on to get your master's or PhD and whatever that may be. And also I was wondering, like, obviously we've been talking about grad school, like, you know, master's, PhD, whatever. So I think it's a big thing for people literally right now, for us in our sophomore year, to be like, so are we going to go to grad school? Or are we just going, you know, straight into, like, a full-time job? Like, I know the former president of the Spelman Economics Club went on, like, straight into working with Goldman Sachs, like, right off the bat. And so some people do things like that. So I was wondering, like, if you personally have any sort of idea as to what you want to do, like, out of Spelman.
I think it really depends if I get a full-time
right,
offer.
yeah,
Like,
for
the
sure.
world is
yeah.
so crazy.
Uncertain,
Like,
yeah.
yeah, even trying to get my 2027 internship has been a lot of interviewing. Like,
Yeah.
oh, guys, like,
I
swear, I'm
know.
really cool. You really want me
I
to work on your
know,
team.
right,
Like,
yeah.
I swear, no more high reviews, no more high reviews. But I would
Please,
love
yeah.
to maybe go straight into the job field.
Yeah.
Hopefully at a big, bold rank if
Right,
they have me.
yeah.
Wall Street is calling my name.
Yeah.
Actually, not even Wall Street. I want to live in Chicago.
Oh,
grad.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah, everyone's like, the winter's so bad, but I'm like, guys, you don't understand. Like, so
yeah.
my top
No, I'm kind of
from-
on that side of things. I'm like, bruh, I cannot do
I
that.
swear. But, like,
Yeah.
it's Chicago, New York, D.C. for me are my top
okay.
three. So
Yeah, that's
I would
awesome.
love anything like that.
Yeah.
And then I would plan on getting my MBA probably 2 or 3 years or
Yeah.
4 years after
okay.
I'm working my job.
Yeah.
So that they can pay for it.
Oh, that's so smart. Yeah. I was
Thank
like,
you.
I definitely do see a lot of people doing that. Like, I've noticed that some people will, like, go straight into working and then they'll gain a lot of experience and then they'll get into, like, a really great master's program, like,
Yeah.
you know, at a significant discount, maybe free of cost, you know?
Yeah.
So it really is, like, a smart sort of alternative for people to do. And I think, like, also it's really important to sort of build, like, a practical skill set, you know, because
That's
sometimes
good.
it's like, oh, yeah, I just spent, like, 2 years getting my master's in whatever, but it's
then
like...
you go in, are
right.
you using the master's?
It's
in
true,
your
yeah, like,
desk, or?
it's really important to have that, which is why I think, like, internships are such a big thing, in econ in particular,
Yeah,
like, a
like, they
huge,
push it.
like, culture around it, for sure.
And then I think it was for FBLS, Future Business Leaders at Spelman. They had a panel of, like, women at Spelman who are doing a lot of different business fields, like starting their own business, working in finance, and then one was a doctor, actually.
Oh, wow,
Yeah,
okay.
but she opened her own practice, so a business owner adjacent.
Yeah.
Need that econ
It's so
skill, see,
true.
guys? See?
Yeah, transfers,
But she
okay.
was like, she would say, I would never, ever get my MBA. Like, they all had MBAs.
Oh, wow.
She said, I would never get my MBA 1 year leaving Spelman, because she said a lot of times when you go into a classroom, it's group.
Yeah.
And she says, you're next to somebody who might be 40 years old, 20 years on Wall Street.
Right.
Their insights are going to be way more well fleshed out, have way more backing behind it than the person who hasn't even worked as an analyst. So she said a lot of times the best students were the people that had gotten jobs. And she said maybe 75 to 80% of all of them had already had jobs going in.
Yeah.
So that's why I always think, like, and also an MBA, like, I don't need an MBA until, like, I'm head honcho.
Yeah.
Like, I'm no,
that's so
a little
true.
quiet.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that, like, it's also, like, extremely field dependent. Like, I feel like for some sort of roles, like, you might not even really need to pursue a master's, you know, like, obviously, like, if you're trying to become an economist, like we mentioned before, even a PhD is probably optimal for that kind of thing if you want to be competitive.
Yeah.
But there are some roles, like, if we were talking about managerial roles or, like, working for
I thought to ask you,
nonprofits.
would you want to get your master's in, like, hotel management? Or?
Yeah. I mean, me personally, I was interested in hotel management for a while, but it's not something that, like, I would want to do as a career path.
Got it.
But if I were to, I definitely would not go into, like, a hotel management master's off bat or off rip or anything like that. Like, I think it's also kind of similar to, like, econ and everything, where you would first want to gain a lot of experience and then maybe pursue a master's program or something of that nature. Like, me personally, I'm more so interested in, like, environmental sustainability and things like that. And so for me, I'm still kind of along the same track where, like, I like to do something like, I don't know, doing, like, volunteer work for a year somewhere instead, and then maybe going into, or like 2 years, whatever, and then going into, like, a master's program, you know, sort of building that experience. And then also there are a lot of, like, grants and things if you do certain programs where, like, if you go to a certain school after that, like, they give you, like, a really, you know, good sort of, like, tuition sort of offer for that kind of thing. So I think there are a lot of options to consider aside from just going straight into grad school. Like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't know what to do, so I'll just go into grad school. But it's like, take some time to really think about what that means and really consider, like, what the outcomes of that could be, because it's not necessarily the answer for everyone. Like, I think sometimes we can sort of push that of, like, you need higher education, you know, to the fullest degree or whatever, you know, but that's not necessarily the answer for every person.
And then how would you, like, if you were speaking, like, let's say you're you're head honcho in this
right,
field,
yeah.
how would you ask people to maybe go about picking, like, what methods do you think people should use in their own life to decide maybe their junior year if they should go get their degree again or go work?
Yeah, I think the main consideration would sort of be, like, what experience do you have right now? Like, if you are someone who's had a ton of internships, you know, you feel like you're really knowledgeable on this subject, And particularly if you're interested in research, I think that's when it's really optimal for you to maybe go into sort of higher, academics and stuff like that, or like just interested in academia in general. Like if you want to be a professor, definitely I would say like it might be best for you to sort of pursue that sort of higher education. And I also think that even if you might not go straight into a master's like right after graduating, like you're doing or like you're planning on doing, like it can be really helpful to sort of bolster yourself if you want to get to sort of those higher ranked roles, especially like if you're trying to climb a corporate ladder. Like it's really helpful for you to also have on your resume, oh yeah, I have all this experience, but I also later on pursued higher education and I have these credentials to sort of back up what I've already done. So I think that can be really helpful. So I think it's kind of like, where are you at in terms of your experience and where are you at in terms of what you want to do like more broadly? Like I think it's really important for, especially right now, like this is a time to be thinking about what is it that I want to do long term, for my career, not just, what master's program do I want to get into, right? I think that's kind of short term thinking, and I think long term thinking is what people really need to be doing for that kind of stuff.
A 10-year plan minimum.
Yes.
Some
not
we
minimum.
were doing like in my my general body meeting, we were talking, my e-board was, and we were doing like, share a fun fact. And a freshman was like, I have a 27-year plan. I was like, oh.
Why is it so specific?
I was like, yeah, you gagged me.
Oh my goodness, I can't.
I loved it when she said it, and it was very well fleshed out.
Yeah?
I'm like, wow, these 27 years, you're gonna have a ball.
Wow, that's insane.
And she's like really on it too. Like
I think people who are like that, I'm like, you actually will do that, like bar for bar, which is so crazy.
Literally bar for bar, and she's really nice. Whoa. I hope she gets it. I want her to be rich and famous.
Yeah,
and
literally.
Yeah, so let's just say you are gonna go through that role. I do think it's important to mention the application process.
Yeah.
You're gonna be taking either the GMAT or the GRE.
Yes.
And also having really strong essays about the leadership or the career goals that you had or developed here while at Spelman College.
Yeah.
Recommendation letters, know which professors to ask. And make sure, I would say this, like, if they can't pick you out of a lineup, I don't know if that's the person you should be asking.
Yes.
Like,
very true.
I really think, or if they haven't given you singular praise, like outside of the classroom, in email.
Yeah.
This was a really great assignment. Or in comments of like assignments. That's how I can really tell.
Yes,
I asked a
that's very
recommendation
true.
from a dude, or not a dude, a really well-liked professor I had.
That's how you know you guys are close.
Yes, he's great.
Yeah.
And I remember I knew it was comfortable. I was comfortable enough to ask him. He wrote my alt recommendation.
Oh, really? Okay, yeah.
And because on one of the assignments, like, he writes really in-depth comments on your essays. Like,
okay.
I love teachers that do that. Like,
yeah,
you
really
could
helpful.
put a space and put a period, and he would better comment, like, delete this space.
Oh
like,
my
he's
goodness,
that particular.
Yeah.
But he ended my final essay with a comment saying, may I please use this for an example next year? Your cohesive, the way it was cohesive. And he said something I love. He says, your essay unity.
Ooh,
he was like, all your 3 essays, he was like, they have such beautiful unity that I would love to use them as an example for next year. And then someone texted me like, hey, you're, because he doesn't take off names.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I just saw your essay, like, really great.
Oh my goodness.
So I was like, okay, if you're using my essay as a example, can I get a recommendation?
Could be a little something,
What are we thinking?
Yeah.
But I knew that he had seen the work I was putting in his class, because you're not going to remember. Like, you're going to remember the girl who has unity. He also rounded my grade. I had an A-. He rounded it to an A in the semester. So I also knew he was rocking with
class
me.
favorite.
Yeah. So I was just like, bro.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Down.
Yeah,
But he was such a particular person, and the way he taught, I know some people either really hated it or really loved it.
Yeah.
But it really worked for me. I really enjoy harsh comments. So I love a critique.
Yes.
I always take a critique well.
Yeah.
So knowing that, like, I think he knew that I was taking it well, and I was actually improving, and A's after A's. So he was like, yeah, girl. And he wrote, and English professor. So the recommendation was a really well written.
Oh, that's fire.
I always say try to pick a teacher where, like, if you write an email with them, the email's fire, because then you know they write great. Or an English professor.
That's really good advice.
That's a good tip.
Okay.
So his recommendation was so, like, could have put tears in my eyes. Like, oh, okay, like, you really saw little freshman me, and you saw her.
Oh my goodness.
So that's like a little cool trip. If you ever need something for grad school, like, find an English professor, find an econ professor, or find a professor who is like did their PhD or their MBA there. Because,
they, like, have a little bit more connection.
Yeah, they have
like,
a little
for sure.
pull.
Yeah.
And especially if you're doing a PhD, like, just prepare for that. Like, it's a little bit more time intensive. But you're also probably going to get funding or stipends. So maybe just figuring out what you want to do. Because a PhD in econ and a master's in econ are very, very, very different
separate.
routes.
Yeah.
So just find out, like, what you like. But that's a little cool tip. Like,
very true.
But also Spelman offers free GMAT and free GRE.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
And free LSAT prep and free MCAT, which is pre-med tech. So they have all of it for free.
Oh my goodness.
And you can take a free test through Spelman.
Yeah.
So utilize the career resources because they're going to give you all the free stuff.
Yeah.
And the MBA prep that they give you for free is like $500, $700. So
Oh, wow.
really utilize that. That's
Yeah.
something cute for the kids to
Okay.
remember.
For sure.
Like if you ever need something, like go to the career office because they're going to do it for you.
Yeah, no, for sure. And also, like, if you're interested in a PhD, that's, like, a lot of math. So that's another thing to remember. Like, the higher up you go in econ, the more it is STEM. Like, at a certain point, it really is just, like, a STEM degree that you're getting. So that's definitely something. And we literally do have a BS in economics, though I don't really know that many people who are doing that track.
I know like 3, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's becoming more popular because people like to put BS
It's
on
true.
their
It's
resume.
cute. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I did 4 calculus, not just 1.
That's
but
so
like
true.
I was BS before I switched to. I went from engineering to BS to BA.
Oh my
and
goodness.
I just kept going. I was like,
You were like,
because I just kept looking at the math requirements. I was like,
It's a
dang, we're
lot.
not gonna cut these down.
Oh my goodness.
Bit.
I was looking at it and I'm like, unless you came in with like
You'll be
all
doing math
3
every
calcs
year,
done, it's a lot to do. It's a lot to do.
Yeah, because technically, if you do a BS, you were supposed to test out a pre-calc and test straight into Calc 1.
Yeah.
No,
Just like,
I didn't do that.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I went pre-calc, calc. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Exactly.
But I don't know. But certainly people do BS. There's a few girls in alt who are BS, but they are also. I know one girl. She's BS and math minor.
Oh,
so you know,
makes a lot
she
of
just
sense.
you know
she would just have that ability.
She was just
anyways.
having a ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
for
her
sure.
parent is a doctor, so I think like she's
it helps a lot.
We have very STEMmy growing up, and like we grew up very similar. We lived like 20 minutes away from each other.
Oh wow.
So, like,
okay.
her school's very STEM focused. I was not surprised when she told me. So I was like,
okay. Yeah, for
something
sure.
cute for the kids.
No, that's so true. And just like in general, like obviously we've gone through all of the sort of more traditional roles you think of, like the corporate roles, all of those kinds of things. And then also the non-traditional roles we discussed, you know, managerial stuff, working for nonprofits, you know, maybe even going into medicine, comp sci, whatever. And then also sort of deciding whether or not you're going to pursue higher education and like what factors sort of contribute to that. So I would say that's like sort of a general overview of what you would want to consider, you know, if you're thinking about the future and your future in econ, or even if you're not an econ major, honestly, like it's really helpful information to sort of decipher what you want to do later on. And also if you're not an econ major and this sounds interesting, then you know that you can pivot to that later on. Like if that's something that you're interested in, usually like obviously that would be like higher education for sure, but that's something that's possible if that's what you're interested in.
Or even a minor.
Yes, don't forget the minors represent, It's so true.
Because I'm a management organization minor, and I don't really know what I do be doing with that.
Right. But it's there.
It's certainly there, and it's really good to supplement econ.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would do it if I wasn't an econ major, you know?
Unless you were, like, really trying to go into, like, business.
Yeah,
you know,
like finance.
Big B. I don't know.
Big B, like, but if you're not, then, like...
Right, yeah.
Social innovation and entrepreneurship is great. I've heard amazing things about that. If you want to do, like, an econ-esque, but you don't want to do the math, that's great. Like, learn about social innovation, learn about social impact, learn about innovation, because Spelman are very innovative.
It's true. We also have like the innovation lab and everything, so like definitely check that out for sure. Also philosophy minor. If anyone wants to pick that up for sure, like that's totally cool.
How many of there are y'all?
It's like literally all of my classes are the same people.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
that seems
oh,
about
okay.
right.
So it's not that many, but it's definitely like a really great major or minor to sort of hone like really important critical thinking skills. That again, like that's what's really important, especially when it comes to like AI. Like you just want to choose something where like you're like locked in, you know, where you can really like sort of pivot to anything because you never really know what's going to be thrown at you. So like it's really important that you have those skills. So yeah, just like quick reminder that like regardless of your major, whatever that may be, you know, like don't feel limited. Just know that like you have the ability to pursue what you want if you just plan for it. Planning is like the most major thing here. It's literally all about planning and like making sure that you have the prereqs that you need to do whatever it is you want to do in the future.
Get those prereqs done early so you can have fun.
Please, yes,
you can, like, switch your major or you can switch your minor and not be
Exactly.
worried because I'm done with my prereqs.
Yeah, oh really? Yeah, that's good.
No more just straight econ classes.
Got that micro, macro.
Yeah,
yeah.
Oh my goodness.
That's so true.
Free me. But I don't know. Like, it's okay to not be STEM.
Yeah, right.
It's okay to be econ because you have so many opportunities for you.
Yeah.
Philosophy, I know they have opportunities. They love y'all in law school. I know that for a
Yeah,
fact.
it's true.
They actually do.
Yeah.
So econ major, philosophy minor, law school's going to accept you. Like,
Yeah,
it's okay.
that's so true. It's okay.
But to wrap everything up,
Yeah.
economics has a very deep traditional role in the liberal arts education. I think economics has been a pillar for many institutions, not just Spelman, but Spelman's great.
Yeah.
Historically, many economics majors pushed the roles in investment banking and made it a more equitable place for Black women.
Yeah.
Investment banking is always going to be white, male, and Yale, and unless you're making the strives to change it.
Yeah.
So look at it. Wealth management, sales, corporate finance, consulting, Black women are innovators in every field.
Yeah.
So it's really about trying to make sure those fields fit you. And these paths are closely aligned with the rise of Wall Street, but they are booming anywhere and everywhere. So don't think you have to live in New York, because you don't.
It's
you can
true.
be in Chicago like me.
It could also be remote.
Yes. Well, I don't know.
Yeah, it's true.
The way life's looking,
It's
I
true.
don't know.
Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
Scratch that.
Economists and finance professionals played central roles in key events in U.S. history, like the Great Depression, financial regulation periods that we have gone through literally since 2008, so since we've been alive, and are now at the head of major corporate expansions. Every time you see a new business pop up, there's an economist somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And
It's so true.
And do you want to have anything to close out before I do your true and false?
I don't really think so. I think you did a really great job of summarizing that. But yeah, all I have to say is pursue what you want to pursue, do what you want to do, be who you are.
At the
That's
end of the
literally
day,
it.
you're the person that has to take those classes, not your parents.
It's true. Yeah, never forget that.
Because,
never forget that. Yeah.
Sometimes people are like, my mom wants me to be pre-med. I'm like, babe, you have to take chem. You have to take Orgo.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Her.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Orgo 1 and 2, no.
Goodness.
I can't. But yeah.
So here's your true and false. Your first question is that most economics majors become economists.
That is false.
Period. Okay. An economics degree only leads to finance.
That is false.
Period. And you must go to grad school to succeed in economics.
That is especially false,
Period.
as we have discussed. Okay, 3 of 3.
Yes,
so true.
All 3.
Yes.
3-pointer. What is she that? Who's like the best 3-pointer? Steph Curry?
Yeah, I was like, I'm not the person to ask.
Oh, well, dang.
Yeah, I have to do a little research on the side. But, all right. So this has been our episode for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, definitely make sure to follow us on Spotify and YouTube at Spelmanomics, and stay tuned for our next episode.